Now let's check in on the retail sector, where the holiday shopping season has been a pretty happy one so far. In fact, sales jumped by 5.5%. That's according to one estimate. That's up from a 4.1% gain in 2009, and it is the best performance in 5 years. But will the momentum carry over into next year? Tom Chin of the Telsey Advisory Group joining us live now with his forecast. Tom, good to have you here on Street Smart. So does the good tidings of this retail shopping season carry over, do you think, into 2011?
Hi, Carol. Yes, I do think that the positive results we've seen for the holiday period will carry over into 2011. A couple of things in terms of the positive and negatives on the scale. On the positives, I think, if you think about some of the things we're seeing anecdotally out in the malls, we're seeing self-purchasing by both men and women. We're seeing more full-price selling out there, so those are all encouraging data points. I think, secondly, if you think about, some of the retail sales out there and, some of the catalysts by the retailers themselves, opening their wallets to look at new store openings, look at remodels, look at spending on marketing, and also hiring more people also.
Right.
Those are all, again, encouraging results. So we think it's going to be fairly positive for 2011.
Tom, is it odd? Is there a disconnect because unemployment's still very high? There's still millions out of work. The housing market, as we got some new data points today, it's still in a very tough way. And that impacts kind of people's wealth effect, if you will. Do you find it odd to have that happening and yet consumers out there shopping the best retail holiday shopping season in about 5 years?
No, I do think that there's still the overhang of the unemployment and housing, but I do believe that people are a little bit less worried about losing their jobs. I think it's stabilized a bit in terms of the unemployment, and right now it's more about the willingness to spend, and I think we're seeing some of that, especially in some of the signs we saw for the holiday period.
How much pent-up demand is there out there, in your view, on the part of the consumer who's really held back for a while?
I think there's still some pent-up demand to be released. And if you think about the sectors that have come back, if you look at the PCE data over the years, we're still not back to the peaks that we've seen back in 2006 and 2007, especially in some of the categories like home furnishings or home improvement. We're still pretty significantly away from those peaks. So I think that bodes well for a recovery into 2011.
Now, it's safe to say that what we're seeing in the holiday shopping season, that's living up to your expectations. I bring that up. You spoke with our Margaret Brennan just a few weeks ago, and you looked for sales growth in the range of 4 to 5%. So is it pretty much playing out as you expected?
I do think so. I think we're pretty consistent in terms of maybe being a little bit higher on the higher end of that. But I do think that the things that we've seen, again, we've had shopping tours throughout the country between Black Friday and now, and we've seen some pretty positive results from that.
Now, who do you think does well in 2011? I'm just looking at a few stocks right in front of me. Costco has had a great year. It's up 22%. Nordstrom's has done well. What are the retailers that you think really kind of lead in 2011?
Yeah, I think in terms of the sectors, again, we've seen kind of in 2010 this bifurcation of the consumer. So the luxury definitely has come back given the stock market's improvement. And I think the discounters continue to do well in terms of the deep discount value. Again, people are still kind of feeling the effects of unemployment and housing. I think what we're seeing now a little bit is more of that middle tier. And so if you think about the mid-tier department stores, if you think about some of the jewelry categories, they're not the high end, but the middle end.
Right.
Or the middle sector, we see that improving over the last couple of months, and we're seeing that probably into 2011.
What about something like the Dollar General stores? I mean, that is up about 36% this year, and that's done really well when things went bad. It's still doing well, though. Does that continue to do well in 2011 if things continue to improve, if you will, on an economic basis? Yeah,
I think one kind of data point that you could argue that would be beneficial to the dollar kind of customer is the fact that we've seen kind of this decrease in Social Security tax, and we saw kind of when we had the stimulus checks a couple of years ago, there definitely was an increase in terms of some of those deep discounted categories. And I think as people get more dollars in their pockets from a decrease in Social Security, which is more of a permanent decrease, we may see actually that benefit some of the deep discounters.
I mean, does it make sense, Tom, in your view, for investors to kind of be looking at those retail names, considering the run-ups that we've seen?
Well, I think in some categories, definitely there's still more room to grow. Again, going back to some of the PCE data, I think there are certain categories where even jewelry, as an example, even though the higher end has come back, there is still kind of momentum in terms of getting back to sales levels that we haven't seen for many years now. All
right, so you sound rather upbeat. Is there any aspect of the retail market that you think we should be cautious on, concerned about?
I think generally we're seeing a pretty broad-based recovery in terms of a lot of the sectors. Again, I think going back to the statement I made before, it was really the middle-tier consumer or that aspirational consumer that had not been coming back in a very meaningful way. And now we're seeing some of those names, whether you want to call it coach-type customer, coming back, and so we're very encouraged by those type of signs.
All right, so Tom, look into your crystal ball. 12 months from now, next holiday shopping season, you think it's going to be as good, or it's hard to tell at this point because there's some iffy factors out there?
I think it's a little hard to tell. I think we'll still have to see some of the macro issues in terms of unemployment and that coming down. Again, we watch the jobless claims very carefully in terms of the 4-week average. And so if we see some of those signs getting better, I think we're going to see a pretty positive season, but it's still early to tell.
All right, got to run. Tom, thank you so much. Tom Chim,
thank you.
Over at the Telsey Advisory Group. We're headed